Thank you for having me here. I was born in Mexico. My mom and my dad were born in Mexico. I have two siblings, my sister and my brother. I'm the oldest of both of them. So the education in Mexico, it's pretty much, you will call it like a private here in United States. But even though it's a public school, you have to pay for tuition for it, pay for the books. It tends to be a lot harder as you get older and going into different grade, just because it's hard to pay for the tuition. And my mom and my dad, my mom had the opportunity just to do all the way to first grade. And my dad, I believe he finished up to third grade of school. But the typical in Mexico, it's probably, I will say, to finish sixth grade. Dad decided right after I was born that he wanted to come to the United States and work for periods of time, but eventually he will go back to Mexico and spend some time. This usually happens around Christmas time. For the most part, I will say it was okay, but because my dad had an alcoholic problem, every time he will go back to Mexico, we knew it wasn't gonna be pretty. He will get kind of aggressive. It wasn't towards me and my brother and my sister. Most of the time it was just towards my mother. So we knew that him being there for the 2 months or so, it was something that we had to just deal with. So while you are little, even though you know what's going on, there's nothing you can do about it, because we knew that if we get involved with anything, we might end up just being up by him as he did with my mom. We will try to avoid. My mom will always be trying for us not to see any of what was going on. But because of my house, it was so little. It was basically just the room where we all sleep in. It was just one bathroom, and then it was the kitchen and the bathroom. That was pretty much basically my house.
So it was hard not to hear what was
yes.
going on in the house. Okay.
Even though he came at really late at night, you were still be able to hear everything, whatever was going on. I believe it was back in 1980s. So he was able to get his residence card, and by doing that, he stayed here. So he was able to manage and stay longer than when he did at first. I believe back in those days, you were able to get like a visa or something like that for you to come a certain time and then have to go back. But since he was able to get the residence, he most of the time he spent it here in the United States. So he will stay here. Eventually, he will try to send my mom money once a month to make sure that we were okay, to provide the food and everything we needed. I know at times it was hard for him because of the type of work that he does. He passed away back in 1997, but he used to work on roofing. So there were times, like during winter time, I believe that it's when it got a little harder for him to be able to provide what we needed. So my dad, even though he wasn't able to finish not even elementary school, one of his goals was for us to at least continue more than what he had done. And the reason why we came here, it was because at one point it was getting harder for him to pay for the tuition. Like I said, at one point, I believe I would say it was not elementary, high school. And it was getting just harder for him, so he made the decision to bring us here to get a better education, because he knew at one point we won't be able to continue education. So we came to Texas in 1993. We were living with some relatives for a while, and then a few months after that, it was just a decision that they had made that they were going to be able to help us for a while, and then we have to move on. My dad knew some friends, and from what I know is that one of his friends told him that there was an abandoned home, and by that time it was time for us to move out of my relative's house. He found this house. It was an empty house. It had no walls, no nothing. It was an empty abandoned house. So we didn't have electricity or any water supply or any utility at all. So we will have to manage on, if you can imagine how you go camping, when you go camping, it was something like that, but it was something that it was like that for like everyday thing for us to do. So we came in August of 1993. So I will say that it was the whole winter for us. So all the way to February of the next year. So it was 4 months.
4 months.
Yes. So my dad knew a friend of his that was able to provide electricity through quartz. And the water, we would usually go to the parks and get the water from the parks. My mom had a little stove, which it only had one. It was just a single one burner, and so she will have to heat up the water. We will have to heat up the water. It was just a process that we all have to wait. For each of us, it would take about 30 minutes just to take a shower. And when it came to cook, it was just a struggle because she will have to cook one thing at a time. So, but then by the time she will get to another thing getting cooked, like whatever she had cooked previously, it was just cold. So it was just things that we had to deal with and just go with that. I don't recall any time that I had to complain because at that time and I still think that I was blessed. Even with that situation, just to have a meal every day. Oh, it was really hard. One of it is because of the language and getting to know a different culture. It's a hard transition to get used to it. We didn't really have the resources of what we needed at the time, of the places that we could go and get some help with clothing and food, and we weren't really sure what to do at that point. And my dad wasn't really the typical father or the typical person that would think that getting help from the government, it was okay for him. It was something that he always tried to avoid for some reason. So I never asked him why, but that was something that I would probably ask him, yeah. So since they weren't, like I say, they weren't able to finish not even elementary school, their goal, and especially my dad's, was for us to finish high school. He didn't really believe on continuing after high school, but he did believe that finish up to that point, it was something that it was good to have. And at that time, I wasn't able to go continuing my education for college or anything like that, because the goal at that time was to help him with he used to work in roofing, like I say. So we were able to help him obtain the jobs that he needed. So we were actually the ones that we were trying to translate for him and try to communicate with people whatever needed to get done for him to obtain the jobs that he needed. So I graduated from high school in 1997. And I remember we were struggling with money still. That was something that it continued. So we found a person that needed someone to work in a daycare. So, but the only problem we had with that, it was that I had to stay at her. It was a home daycare, so I had to stay at there because it was hard to drive back and forth every day, especially in Houston. It's a really traffic city where you can be stuck for 2 hours in traffic. So it wasn't worthless to drive back and forth every day. So I stayed with her. I would come on the weekends to see my mom and my dad, while my other two, my brother and my sister, were still in high school. I remember I used to make about $200 a week. So I think it was just me. My brother and my sister are a little, they like to keep a little money for them, but I was that type of person that whatever I make, I will just give it to them because I knew that we needed, even though. And I was proud of myself because at that time I was able to buy shoes and things that my brother and my sister needed for school. So it was something that they liked. Yeah.
Did you buy for?
I worked at the daycare, I believe it was 2 years. Then eventually my dad didn't want me to stay there anymore because it was more, he just wanted to see me more often because it was just the weekends. It wasn't enough to kind of be with the family. So my sister graduated the 2 years after I graduated. So she started working at this place called CC's Pizza. So she referred me to them. So I started working there. I believe I was working for them for about a year when they were looking for someone to come and cover some shifts here in Kansas City. So at that point, wherever we were staying and renting, it was getting a little harder because my dad liked to have roosters. So if you live within the city limits, you can have any type of farm animals. You have to live out the city limits. So we were trying to find a place where he could have everything he had. And it was hard because we didn't have the money at the time. So back then, my former employer offered me if I would come to help him here in Kansas, he would be able to loan me that money. So that way we could do the give the down payment for the land that he was trying to buy. So that's the reason why I ended up in Kansas. At the time, I was just the assistant manager. It was, like I said, my first year working for them. So you have to kind of work harder towards whatever higher position you want for them. So I came and worked for a few months, and then I went back to Houston. I worked for them for almost, I think it's 15 years.
That's a long time.
Yes. So then at one point, because I was familiar with Kansas, they asked me if I wanted to come and live here in Kansas. And that's when I was transferred back in 2014. So the owner decided to close the restaurant. He had several restaurants, but for some reason it wasn't going well. Whatever sales we were making at this location, it wasn't enough to provide for the other locations. So he decided to close the restaurants, and that's when I lost my job. I was able to apply for unemployment at the time, so it was a little something that I was getting that did help me a lot. So I was at home. I was pregnant with Christopher. I had just had Christopher at the time, and so we usually I would receive mail, and I saw this letter that said childcare, and it said Growing Futures. And I didn't really pay attention because since I wasn't really familiar with the area around, it says Santa Fe. So in my mind, I always thought that it was Santa Fe and Oleta. So I didn't really pay attention to it. So the days passed by, and I received a second letter. And I actually opened it, and it said, okay, here it is again. So I Googled the address. That's when I realized it wasn't that far from where I live at the time. So I called, I think it was Anna at the time, and I set up an appointment with them and kind of get to know what the place was all about and what resources or what is it that they could do for Christopher at that time. I was enrolling home base, yes. Christopher, I believe he was 6 months at the time, so we started doing the program with the home base, which is basically they will come once a week for 90 minutes and work with you on developing Christopher's skills, on motor skills, and anything that has to do developing with his brain. It was something that it really helped, especially me and Christopher, obviously, to encourage us to always keep active and doing activities with him at all the time, because the first 3 years of his growth is the most crucial. So you obviously want to keep him active and always introduce new things to a child. I had a few people at the time, but Julie was really helpful. since I wasn't working. She will bring me resources and kind of guide me on the things that I needed to kind of work on to, like, if you can imagine, it's been 15 years that I've been in that job. So for me, doing an interview and all of those things, it was something that I had to learn, basically. So she was really helpful with all of those things. I remember talking to her that I was interested in doing something different than just what I have been doing so many years. One day she came and told me that there was a policy council and that she thought that I was a good fit for policy council, that I could come and, she kind of explained what it was all about, just to hear what everything is going on within the organization, and then I was able to, be part of that. So I started coming to policy council. You say that there was an opening in the kitchen, so I was able to apply for that position, and that's how I end up here working for Growing Futures. So I work in the kitchen. We are able to provide breakfast, lunch, and snack for the kids. Right now we have, I believe, 100, close to 200 kids. So we have to provide those meals for them every day.
And you manage the kitchen?
Yes, I'm a supervisor for the kitchen. So I'm in blessed, like I say, because being here and being part of the Growing Future family, not just as a parent but as an employee as well, I'm able to pilot, I think that's what it's called, where JCC came and offer help on filling out applications for FAFSA and how to get enrolled with JCC. So I was part of that, and I can say now that last semester was my first semester attending to JCC, so that I'm enrolling in early childhood education program right now. Gosh, they gave me that little push that I needed, because if I go back and think of all these years that I've been working, I could probably go to school anytime I wanted to, but I think I just needed that push, yes, that someone that could say, hey, you can do it. You can do this for you and your kids and your family. So Head Start has given me the push to be where I am right now. If it wouldn't be for all the support and that push that Head Start just had given me, it's what I needed all this time. Yes, and it's not just the fact that you're getting, but I'm the type of person that believes that you have to give back, regardless if you don't have as much as other people do, but there's always a way that you can always give back. So when I started joining Policy Council, I was able to volunteer at that time where I wasn't working. So I would come and kind of volunteer and help out in anything that they needed. It was mainly at the front office. And then that's how I got my daughter involved in volunteering as well. So right now, I believe she's been here, it's either 3 or 4 years that she's volunteering in one of the classrooms. So she comes every Wednesday. I always thought about this and going to college and do it what I really wanted to do. But all these years before I came to Growing Futures, it was something that it was just on the side. Like I knew that I wanted to do that, but I knew it wasn't possible to. But throughout the years that I've been here, is something that Head Start has shown me that I can do it, and you can do it. You're gonna have those bumps in the road, but even with that, you always can get up and keep on going and try to do your best. Hi. Can you say hi?
Hi,
Okay, tell me again, what's your name?
Christopher.
How old are you?
4.
You're 4? You think I'm 4?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
You think she's 4?
yeah.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing to do at school?
To learn names and go fight.
You love to go outside?
Yeah,
What do you do when you go outside?
to play.
Do you run? Do you go down the slide?
I go down the slide and run.
You know what's in your hand?
Dang.
It's a dinosaur, yes. Is it a dinosaur?
Brontosaurus.
It's a brontosaurus. Do you know what a brontosaurus likes to eat?
Tree.
You're right. He likes to eat leaves and trees.
He has 1,
That's a
2,
big one.
Do you like to eat leaves?
1, 2,
Hey, what is your favorite vegetable? We were talking about this.
carrots.
Carrots
Broccoli.
I know broccoli is his
Broccoli
favorite.
and carrots.
And what do I do?
To bring me food.
I bring you food.
Christopher, thank you for coming down here so we can take the picture.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.